Welcome to today's live video coach chat session. My name is Rich Allen, your business coach. Thanks for joining me today. It's a beautiful day here, Wednesday, middle of the week. Hope all your week's going well. I wanted to take a few minutes this week to give you a tip from a new book that I'm reading that I think you might find really interesting, and I think would find it powerful to your current selling techniques and tools. It's a book called To Sell is Human, and it's written by Daniel Pink. And I don't know if you're familiar with Daniel, but he's a great writer and really good research guy. And he lays out the case for why we shouldn't be stifled by this art of selling, why we should just go with it because it is just a natural part of what we do as humans. But I was particularly taken by one thing that he outlined in his book, and that was about the evolution of the sales pitch, the 30-second commercial, the 60-second commercial, the one that we've all been taught to memorize and pull together. And he's taken a deep look at what it takes in today's busy environment to be successful with getting your message across to people. And what I love about it is he's outlined 6 different methods that we ought to use to get our sales message out and to our audience. And I wanted to share those 6 methods with you today, and also recommend to you that you pick up the book, To Sell is Human by Daniel Pink. Powerful read, well worth your time, well worth the investment. So let me give you the 6 basic types of pitches that he talks about that we need to master as business owners, that we have to get nailed down so that we can do them well. I'll start with number 1. Number 1 is the subject line pitch. And that is, if we're going to communicate with our audience by email or letter, or even in a news release or a postcard, whatever it might be, we've got to get the subject line right. We've got to make the subject line powerful in order to get people to want to read the rest of our content and perhaps get to the point in where they get to our offer. So our subject lines have got to be pithy, they've got to be sharp, they've got to be on point. And they can be one of 2 different kinds. Your subject line can either be something that is intriguing, so it's curiosity based, that makes people more curious about what you're writing about. So it kind of has to be a little bit aloof and maybe just a little playful if it's in that context. Or it's got to be what they call utility based, which means it gets direct to the point that if you read this, here's what you'll get. So it's 3 steps to prevent this, or 5 ways to avoid these mistakes. Whatever it is, but it's got to either be utility based or it's got to be curiosity based. Those are the most powerful subject line pitches that we ought to get used to and get good at in our business. A second kind of pitch is called the question pitch, and that is where you pose a question as the introduction or the way to get people to pay attention to you. So if there's somebody, that in the presidential campaigns in the past, they've used it where they've said, "Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago?" was a powerful line that Ronald Reagan used. There are other question-based headlines that can be the essence of the pitch particularly if we have a product or service that we are certain can help improve where somebody is, then we ought to ask a question and make it a question-based. A third type of a pitch is a rhyming pitch. So somewhere where you can use a little bit of playfulness in your messaging so that you create a rhyme. Rhymes tend to be remembered. They tend to become memory hooks, and they tend to get people's attention. It's something that you can cleverly recall long after you've delivered the line. So if you can find a way to rhyme, there are some websites that are available to help you find rhyming words. it might be a powerful way for you to get your message across in a rhyming kind of a way. A fourth kind of pitch is what's known as a Twitter pitch. And a Twitter pitch obviously is designed to go hard into the social media world, and it's limited to 140 characters. So we have to be on point, we've got to be pithy, and we've got to be direct with with the message that we're trying to get out. We can't drag it on. It doesn't allow us to wander. We've got to be focused and direct. In fact, the recommendation that Daniel gives in the book is to limit your characters to 120 characters, which allows then for whoever your reader is to retweet your message. And so if you want to allow the retweeting or make it more available, keep it to 120 characters. That'll make it perfect for that. The fifth kind of pitch is what's known as the one-word pitch. Powerful, but yet a little more complicated and a little more difficult to create. What's the one word that defines or characterizes your business, your offering, your product, your service, your so what? One word. There are some companies that have come up with that. Think about it. I guess American Express has come up with one when they said priceless as being their one word. You say that word and immediately we think of American Express. There are others that have come down to one word. Overnight might be one that FedEx has used. It's a little more challenging, but take your longer definition of your so what, your presentation, and then continue to narrow it down, bring it down, and create a half the length or half the size number of words, and then do that again, and finally you'll get down to the point where you have a very short phrase that you're using, and within there is likely the essence of your one-word pitch. Powerful if you can make it happen, and very usable. It can go everywhere. And then the sixth type of pitch is more like the pitch that you see happening in Hollywood in a movie storyline. Most of the movie storylines follow a sequence. Some of the research that has been done has proven that there's a flow to the message in a movie, just like there ought to be a flow to the message in our sales pitch. And the flow goes something like this. It's a 6-stage flow. Once upon a time, the world was like this. Every day, here's the description of what happened in that world. Then one day, this change happened. Because of that, this occurred. Because of that, it allowed people to have this benefit, until finally everybody in the place was happy. Do you get the sequence? Kind of interesting, kind of clever. Once upon a time, every day, then one day, because of that, until finally. And it kind of it gives you a story that makes it more believable, more you engage your audience more with what they call the Pixar pitch. The Pixar pitch. It's it follows the animation movie theater Pixar or organization Pixar, because they've essentially invented it. So there are 6 kinds of different pitches for you to kind of think about, because as business owners, if we're going to grow our businesses, we've got to use every possible venue that we can to get our message out. We can't just simply rely on a single 30-second or 60-second commercial to do the trick. We've got to have other powerful means. So we've got to develop a subject line pitch. We've got to put it in the form of a question. We've got to make a rhyme if we can to make it more memorable. We've got to put it into a Twitter format, 140 characters most, maybe 120 ideally. The one-word pitch, powerful, difficult to create, but impactful. And then the Pixar pitch, tell the story in the 6-step story sequence. But no matter what we do with our sales pitch, they've got to include 3 thoughts. You've got to make sure that these are at the center of what you're thinking about as you put your presentation together. What do I need my target audience to know? So what do I want them to know? How do I want them to feel? And what do I want them to do? So what do I want them to know? How do I want them to feel? What do I want them to do? 3 things that must be essential in whatever we put together. We've got to keep that at the core. So today's tip for you, this week's tip, is to get the book To Sell is Human by Daniel Pink. You'll love it. Good read. It's got some great tips in there. It'll help you get really focused and energized around getting your message clear, concise, and in front of the right audience. Do that, and I'm sure your business will take off and grow bigger, even this week. Hope that helps. My name is Rich Allen, your business coach. Thanks for joining me this week. And as usual, I'll tell you, ride hard. We'll talk next week. Good to see you. Take care.